We've talked a talk. We've gone over Bo Horvat. We've gone over Brock Besser. We've talked about Garland and had a few conversations about Miller thrown in there as well. There are a lot of trade rumors surrounding themselves when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, but this is the one guy whom, if you had asked me, like at the beginning of the year, oh, the Canucks suck, they're going to start making trades, who do you think is going to be on the block, who do you think is not going to be on the block, this is the one guy that I thought it was almost going to be impossible to see him enter the trade market and actually be a piece. Let's talk today about the goaltender who hasn't played in a very long amount of time, Thatcher Demko. Because when it comes to the situation in Vancouver, you're talking about the retooling, the rebuilding, whatever word you want to use. I know the Canucks management refuses to use the word rebuild. I think that's by design, mostly. If you go over to the most recent 32 Thoughts article published by Elliot Friedman from last night, 32 Thoughts, Canucks and Islanders make an interesting gamble in a Horvat trade. This is what he writes about when it comes to the very first thought on the piece. Where does this trade leave Vancouver? Clearly, the Canucks have identified their core: Petey, Hughes, Miller, Kuzmenko. Things can change if someone gives them a reason to pivot, but actions speak, and these are the key Canucks. There are conversations about extending Ethan Bear. Other than that, they're listening on a few interesting things. Let's see how things play out when goalie Thatcher Demko returns. The fact that he's signed with a bit of term makes him attractive, and teams will want to get a feel for what Vancouver is thinking. Buffalo, Columbus, LA, and Pittsburgh all make sense. The Sabres and Blue Jackets can afford to be patient. They are thinking long-term. But others would need to know he can make a spring 2023 impact, particularly with the price to be paid. Will there be enough runway before March 3rd to convince buyers that Demko is ready? There are repeated rumblings linking Besser to Minnesota, but the math doesn't make sense as things stand. I do think there are teams who like Tyler Myers' nastiness. What nastiness? What are you talking about, Friedman? But in a tight cap world, that might wait until summer. Thatcher Demko is being asked about. Furthermore, we had ourselves Friedman, who made an appearance on Donnie and Dolly. This is what he said on that show a few days ago. I thought no way they would ever move him, but now I think it could be possible. At least, think about it. I'm hearing, like you, Rick, that teams are indeed calling. And so Thatcher Demko is in a position where now, as a Canucks goalie who has been sidelined for so long, it's apparent that there might actually be some smoke to this idea that he could be moved. Now, would Thatcher Demko get traded because Thatcher Demko is bad? No, not necessarily. That's not really the point that we're trying to make here when discussing the idea of a Demko trade. But more so, it's the idea that when it comes to a retooling of the Vancouver Canucks trying to see what they could do the next few years, a player like Thatcher Demko is 27 years old already, so he is one of the older quote-unquote core pieces that the team has. I know Kuzmenko is just underneath Demko in age, Miller is a tad older, but Demko is a player who is already up there. He is making $5 million a year till the end of 2026, and when 2026 rolls around, Demko is going to be 30, he's going to be a UFA. Who knows where the Vancouver Canucks are going to be in terms of their retooling, how good they're going to be. Let's say, for the sake of making things interesting, that the Canucks are not an amazing team in 2026. Let's say they're a few years deep after retooling and making some trades that make the team worse on paper, and a guy like Thatcher Demko is going to demand a boatload of money to stick around because he's a goaltender with a proven starting record that is going to be a UFA. I mean, 30 years old, he's probably going to be able to demand a boatload of money, and the Vancouver Canucks might not have the benefit of saying, okay, well, we have an amazing team here, why don't you go out there and take a discount and lower your price? Now, that's not me saying it's impossible for the Canucks to be a good team in 2026, I'm just asking the question, what if they're not amazing? You then have yourselves the other conversation saying that, hey, the Canucks just traded away Horvat. That is a 27-year-old guy, too. He's a guy that is just in the smack dab middle of his prime. He got a whole bunch of crap for the Vancouver Canucks, and with a trade like this, getting Beauvillier, Ratu, and a first, you can see that the Vancouver Canucks are prioritizing building the youth, getting a tad younger, and they're not afraid to get worse in the short term because of it. For Thatcher Demko, he has had a really bad season that even if you take out the removed games from his injury, he was so bad this year. Like, definitely not the same caliber of player that Demko was in last season's worth of play. We all know that he's still talented, it's just in the showcase he had this year, you could definitely say there's a better Demko to uncover there. But with the Vancouver Canucks having such a long amount of time removed from Thatcher Demko, they're so used to having this tandem of Martin and Delia now, you have yourselves the benefit that says, okay, well, the team has played without Demko for so long now that it's not really like anything is going to change from the day-to-day. I mean, the guy is going out there rehabbing this injury that he was supposed to take 6 weeks to recover from, but now it's been, how long has it been? 8, 9 weeks? He was injured at the start of December, so what gives? Then you have yourselves the idea that says that teams like Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Columbus, these teams might be actually able to go out there and pay a pretty penny. And this is why you think about this. If the Vancouver Canucks are committed to this sort of retooling and they're thinking about the long-term cap, they're thinking about guys that might have to re-sign this year, next year, 2026 for example, that'll be a little bit older and could demand a whole bunch of money. You talk about guys who could put themselves in the same position as JT Miller did this offseason. You say that Demko could very well be one of those guys, and if there's a team like, let's say LA, that's willing to trade away a pretty good right-handed defenseman who is young, also send over a draft pick to Vancouver's way in a draft like 2023, you could see yourselves an opportunity for the Canucks to strike while the iron is hot, and while teams want to go out there and get themselves a better goalie. At least on paper, he's a better goalie. At least based off his reputation, you would hope that he provides a better showcase in the next few parts of this season comparative to the first part. And especially if he goes over to a team that's a lot better defensively than Vancouver, like the penalty kill is not as bad as the Canucks PK is, then okay, I could definitely see a world where Demko goes over to a team like Pittsburgh, for example, and he has a much better tenure to end off the season than he had to start it. The floodgates have now opened ever since we had seen this Bo Horvat trade get underway. And I know Frank Saravelli had the thing on Sportsnet yesterday where he was like, yeah, no, it's Garland next, it's Besser next, it's Shen next. These guys are the players that could very well have themselves traded sooner rather than later. That was the phrasing that he used in the show. This is sort of the fire sale that Vancouver has attended, and it seems like they had an early bird special with Bo Horvat heading over to the Islanders the other day. So if you're a fan of any of these teams, the Buffalo Sabres, the Columbus Blue Jackets, Pittsburgh Penguins, the LA Kings, talk to the comments your thoughts about the idea of a Thatcher Demko trade. Do you even want this guy? Do you want to get an improvement in net? Is this something you think is necessary to your team and its development the next few months here? Do you think Thatcher Demko could be that guy? Assuming that he is, what is the price that you want to give up for a player whose rights expire in 2026? He's making $5 million a season. Realistically, Demko is one of the best goalies in the league when he is on top of his game. It's just he really has not played well this season, and he has taken such a long time to recover from this surgery that he had that I don't really know how good he is going to be when he does come back. Time will tell when eventually he does make his return to Vancouver and plays in front of Spencer Martin again, but for now, it's just kind of hypothetical questions. Thoughts in the comment section below about Buffalo, Pittsburgh, LA, and Columbus. If you're a Canucks fan, what do you think is the evaluation for what a Demko costs on the market? Do you think he's going to go out there and demand a whole bunch of stuff? Is it something similar to the Bo Horvat trade? Is it maybe a little bit less? Is it only really like a first or one prospect or whatever? Thoughts in the comment section below if you're a fan of any of these teams or a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. What is the Thatcher Demko trade price? I hope you enjoyed this video. Juraj 99 and bye.